Welcome to part one of a series called 7 Times I Dipped in the Jordan. There is an intro video out there if you're so inclined to watch it. It is just my personal story of a trauma that I went through and the beginning of the healing journey that happened as a result. So it adds extra context, totally up to you. If you haven't watched it, you can still continue on with the series. But hopefully I got all the crying parts out of the way, so now I can just talk to you like a normal human being. But first, for today, I want to start with scripture, and specifically the story of Naaman that is found in 2 Kings 5. The king of Aram had great admiration for Naaman, the commander of his army, because through him the Lord had given Aram great victories. But though Naaman was a mighty warrior, he suffered from leprosy. At this time, Aramean raiders had invaded the land of Israel, and among their captives was a young girl who had been given to Naaman's wife as a maid. One day, the girl said to her mistress, "I wish my master would go to see the prophet in Samaria. He would heal him of his leprosy." Then verse 9. So Naaman went with his horses and chariots and waited at the door of Elisha's house. But Elisha sent a messenger out to him with this message: "Go and wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan River. Then your skin will be restored and you will be healed of your leprosy." But Naaman became angry and stalked away. "I thought he would certainly come out to meet me," he said. "I expected him to wave his hand over the leprosy and call on the name of the Lord his God and heal me. Aren't the rivers of Damascus, the Abana and the Pharpar, better than any of the rivers of Israel? Why shouldn't I wash in them and be healed?" So Naaman turned and went away in a rage. But I want to pause the story here and share a little bit more about my Naaman experience. So after I went through a trauma of trying to save a young boy's life and being unsuccessful, I went through a lot of depression, a lot of anger, a lot of disgust that I dealt with. I had constant flashbacks. I had a complete lack of faith, and I was really struggling for a long time. And I just felt like I just had to push through, that if I just waited a little bit longer, things would get better. But after 3 months of dealing with this over and over again on a daily basis, I remember there's this one night where God very gently but insistently told me, "You need to get help. You need to go see a counselor." And I was furious. You'll probably find anger is my default emotion, for better or worse. And so I was angry with him, and I was like, why? Why do I have to do that? If you've heard my testimony, I've dealt with mental illness before. I've battled alcoholism and depression and all of those things. I never went to see a counselor. I never got support other than just God supporting me through it or working with me through it. There were friends and family that walked alongside me in a lot of that, but there was never a professional person that helped me. And for some reason, I couldn't even tell you why, I was adamantly opposed to this idea of going to see a counselor. It was like a weakness I could not admit. And I fought him on it. I was like, no way, absolutely not. I will not go speak to someone. But over and over and over again, God gently but insistently was like, you have to work on this. You have to work on this. You have to work on this. And he made it really clear to me that the ball was in my court because I was deciding what I wanted to do. But in order for me to be successful in the ways that he had for me to be successful, I needed to get healing in this area. And he was calling me to that. And I was refusing. So finally, after all of this went on for a while, and I finally said, all right, Lord, I don't know what I'm doing, so you're gonna have to be in charge of all of this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go talk to our lead pastor, and I don't want anyone else to know, I just want him to know, and I'm gonna see if he can tell me who to go to. And I made this deal with God. It was a total one-sided deal, I thought, where I said, you know what, if you really want me to do this, here's the thing. When I go into work tomorrow morning, I want the lead pastor's door to be open. And then if it is, I will go in and I'll talk to him. Well, he very commonly had his door open, but not that one day and that one time of day when I got to work. And I knew that because that was the day that he did sermon prep. And so I remember going into work and I was half hoping the door would be shut and then half hoping it would be open and maybe I could start to get some sort of healing or resolution. And so I was kind of like holding my breath, and I walked in, and of course his door was open because that's how God works. And so I set my stuff down and I looked around and no one else was around, so I could go in and I could talk in private with the door open. And so I did. I sat down and I told him, I said, I think I need help. I think I need to talk to someone. And he actually had a great Christian counselor that he knew personally. She had walked with him and many others through a grieving time that they had gone through at a previous church. So he gave me her number and her name, and then I petulantly waited weeks before I called her. It was like I was hoping that God was going to do this whole like Abraham and Isaac thing and like not really intend for me to ever go to counseling, but he just wanted to see if I would like take the step of faith and like open the door and start to go, and then he'd be like, all right, now you're good, you're healed, no problem, you got this. That's not what happened. So I went to this counselor and I sat down and I told her everything, and I want to share a lot more with you over the coming weeks about some of the things that I learned through her. She was amazing. But what I will tell you is that first week, I thought that was going to be it. Like, it's totally naive. You may be sitting there thinking I'm a total idiot, but I literally thought that was going to be it. She'd be like, okay, great. You needed to get that out. That was great of you. You were very big to come in here today, and now you're on your way to healing. Great job, man. You know? And instead, she gave me homework. She gave me assignments to work through, assignments to pray through, set an appointment for the next week, and then went ahead and booked me for every 2 weeks after that for a while. So it shouldn't be a surprise that I was angry when I left, because that was not what I had expected once again to happen. And obviously I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you all if there wasn't healing that resulted from all of this. But I tell you, I fought God kicking and screaming my way through healing every step of the way. But I want to go back to Naaman's story, because the beauty of all of this and the beauty of scripture is that so many times we can see we are not alone, and what we're going through is not new. It's new to us. It's not new to God. And I am so thankful for scripture where we get to see other men and women of faith who have gone through similar things and come out victorious in some way or another. So let's go back to Naaman. But his officers tried to reason with him and said, "Sir, if the prophet had told you to do something very difficult, wouldn't you have done it? So you should certainly obey him when he says simply, 'Go and wash and be cured.'" So Naaman went down to the Jordan River and dipped himself 7 times as the man of God had instructed him. And his skin became as healthy as the skin of a young child, and he was healed. It's funny how so many times we read a passage of scripture and it means nothing to us at all. And then all of a sudden, one day, it means literally everything. And Naaman's story showed up in my daily Bible reading the day after I went to the counselor. And it literally felt like God had held up a mirror and said, "Rebecca, this is your story. Have you noticed any similarities between you and this guy called Naaman?" And Naaman, he wasn't lazy. He wasn't a wimp. He wasn't a coward. You know, he didn't back down from a fight. He was victorious. He was strong, but he had leprosy. He had a disease. He needed healing. He was suffering from it. And I wasn't lazy. I wasn't a wimp. I wasn't backing down. You know, I was fighting through it. I thought I could just fight through whatever was going on. Elisha told Naaman to go to the Jordan River, and that was really intentional because that was not the rivers that Naaman knew, right? He specifically listed these 2 rivers that he knew that were cleaner rivers. They were known as better rivers, these rivers of Damascus, the ones that he was comfortable in, the one that he would have preferred. He probably had bathed in these rivers before. Why would he have to go to the Jordan River? And for me, it was like, why would I have to go talk to somebody I don't know? Why not talk to my friends or my family, people who knew my story? You know, this person, she doesn't know where I've been. She doesn't know my context. She doesn't know what I've been through. All she's going to ever hear about is this one piece of my life that I don't want to define me. I want to grow from it. And I had this resistance. And the thing is I love/hate that Elisha told Naaman not to dip in the Jordan 1 time, but to dip in the Jordan 7 times. And here I was thinking I could just go dip in the counselor's office 1 time and not have to dip in the counselor's office 7 times. I wanted just 1 time to be healed. And I think the biggest irony of my story and Naaman's story is what his officers said to him in verse 13. They said, "Sir, if the prophet had told you to do something very difficult, wouldn't you have done it? So you should certainly obey him when he says simply, 'Go and wash and be cured.'" As much as Naaman wanted to be instantly cured, he wanted this prophet Elijah to just come out of his house, wave his hand over him, say some magic words, and let him be healed. But Elisha didn't even leave the house, didn't even come out to see him, but just sent a messenger, which ticked Naaman off. So that was option one. Option one was be magically healed by this prophet. Option two, that Naaman would have been okay with, is to fight for it, to fight for his healing, to earn his healing in some way, because he knew how to do that. That made sense to him. Elisha's command, go take a bath 7 times in a dirty river, that was not at all what Naaman expected. And it wasn't a hard command. How hard is it to go dip in a river? But it was hard for him because he didn't understand it. It wasn't honorable. It wasn't noble. It wasn't something that he earned, something that he fought for. But it did not give credit to Elisha for his ability as the prophet to just call down healing from God. And it did not give credit to Naaman for fighting and earning his healing. Instead, it only gave credit to God because his healing came in such a way that didn't make sense. And I could relate 100% to all of this. I either wanted God to be like, boom, you're healed, you're great, go on with your life, fantastic. Or I wanted to fight for it. I wanted to white knuckle my way through it and prove that I was strong enough and tough enough that I could go through this really dark time that had totally wrecked me, and that I could just come through without any support. I didn't need anybody else. I was just gonna fight for it. It was honorable, it was noble. But as a result, I would have gotten the credit for that if I could have earned my healing. But here's the thing, we don't get to dictate the terms of our healing. Which makes sense, because we didn't get to dictate our traumas either. We didn't get to choose what we went through. So maybe you're sitting here and you're listening and you're thinking, wow, going to see a counselor, that's so easy. Or I've done that before, it's not a big deal. But maybe God has something for you in your healing that's completely different. And I'm not going to speculate what that might be because I have no idea. But I want to leave you with one more thought from scripture, which is this. In the ministry of Jesus, he heals many blind people. Some of them were born blind, some of them struck blind, some of them blind as a result of demon possession, but he heals them in different ways. There are some times where it says he heals blind people and we don't get to know how he does it. There are some times he just looks at someone and says, receive your sight. There's a time where he makes these clay mud pies and puts them on someone's eyes and has them go wash in water, which sounds very familiar to me. And then there's the time where Jesus spits in the man's eyes and lays hands on him to receive his sight. But that guy, it takes him 2 attempts of Jesus laying hands on him to receive his sight. So if I'm that guy, I'm probably like, so I heard that you could just speak healing to people. Do you think we could try that first before the whole spit thing? Or maybe he would be like, hey, how come it took me 2 attempts to see? How come somebody else just got 1 attempt to see? I would have washed in the water, no big deal. But that's the thing. Our healing won't look exactly like others' healing. There could be similarities, but God knows exactly what we need for our greatest good and his greatest glory. Naaman ends his story by saying, now I know there is no God in all the world except in Israel. And he determines that he's going to worship no other God but the Lord. So God's purpose in the method and manner of Naaman's healing was not just for the sake of Naaman's healing, but also for the sake of God's glory to be known. And it's the same for us. God has a purpose not just in our healing, but in the manner and method through which that healing comes. So if you need healing, I want to encourage you today to ask God how he wants to heal you. Ask him if there's a path he's been trying to lead you down that maybe you're fighting it as well. And if you have received healing in an area, maybe your next step is just telling someone about it, telling others. I would love it if you wanted to leave a comment or send me an email and let me know what God's done in your life and the healing that he's done in your life. And then also, I'd love for you to come back next week and check out part 2 as I continue sharing about both my story and others' journeys throughout Scripture.